Okay.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. Here again, now talking about how important is the customer data made it landed on Tryton to allow the customer test the system with their own data and to also improve or not improving improving the quality of your training if you are a company providing services about Tryton. So when we talk about migrations, we know that data is that important for the customer. So the first step you need to take is what is the relevant data that you need. So, okay, customers, suppliers, that's important or not. Are there a few so I can import it manually or whatever? You need to ask those questions. You need to ask also if they have where they have all the data. It's in a single database. They have spreadsheets all around. How is the data managed into the company? Also, you need to prioritize the time of your customer, allowing them or maybe giving him more information loaded into the system. If you have, for example, a relevant question, it's asking for which are the relevant modules that your customer needs, so you can talk about that to get the required information. Also, when you load the products, we will need images, we will need measurements, attributes, what kind of information do you want to have or how we will manage that information in the future in Tryton. It's important. You can help getting all that information of your customer into Tryton. Also, for example, when you have a set of already bills of materials, you can try to improve the experience so they don't have to go to creating each product, creating each bill of material, linking them to the product, and all that kind of boring stuff at the beginning. So you will have time normally to explain how it works to the customer, but for now, for the migration, for the first step, maybe it's better to give the customer an overview of what can be done. So yeah, you agree on a timeline for your migration, and you can also look up for existing migrations. I think that Nico was talking before about Tryton tools, Tryton demo, yeah? That's where it's located. Also, you have the repository from B2CK about the migration from Open ERP to Tryton. And also, there's a recent discussion about how it's better to import or which are the best practice to import data. You should look about that. And also, if you are a newcomer or a student or whatever, this talk maybe can help you. The last important topic, I think it's most available, it's when you have a first step migrated database to Tryton, we used to, and we like to, train the customer with that data. So they can review if the migration is successful until we arrive at the end day of the migration real data. But does not Tryton have an import CVS feature? Yes. So the customer can feed data in Tryton with files, yes. But there are some problems doing that. Which type of problems? For newcomers, it's not easy to understand how the columns work on Tryton or the fields. Maybe some namings are strange for them. I don't know if it's in Spain normally we don't talk about parties or terceros, as it's called in Spanish. We talk about suppliers and customers, and normally I think that most companies around the world talk over suppliers. So maybe the party definition name, it's not common So what about importing over files invalid phone numbers? When you have hierarchy, it's difficult to import that in one round. You have to go through different steps to import hierarchical data. There's also not possible to load JSONs. And with many-to-one fields, there are problems around. And another annoying problem is that when you load the file, when you take your time trying to match each of your column file names with the Tryton, if you fail or anything fails, you need to start again loading that column links on the import feature. File encoding, you need to take care of that, and you have to do it only in one shot, because if not, you load wrong data into the system that the customer says, oh, and I cannot delete this. Yeah, you can not activate that product or whatever, but it's there. I don't want it there more. So you end up in those types of situations. So, well, the import feature that Tryton have for files, it's okay, but maybe you have better options. What's the better options? Proteus. Proteus allows you to, with minimal configuration, make your migrations. Okay, this is the minimal structure to make a script in Proteus. Apart from these two lines, you can start importing or whatever you want to do with data in Tryton. What's Proteus? Proteus is a tool that mimics what the client of Tryton do. Okay, so that's the minimal, but there's our recommendation of how should be used, or maybe not, but there's our recommended structure. There's the import part at the beginning. We have some definition about the defaults to make less queries to the database. You have the main function where you can load products or load whatever you want with different functions that you can see there, and also the main part where you can add argument parsing and whatever you want with your source database, all that kind of. So this is you can have both. You can have your own, and you can load whatever you want into Tryton. Okay, but how I can load whatever I want? So how do I fill any field? So you can, for example, create a party. To create a party, you only need to create an object, assign a string to the name, and save it. That's only what you need to create a part in Proteus. You can also do it in a for loop, and you can make searches. And please don't do strings on many-to-one because this is not working, as you cannot assign a string. You need to query or get the object itself of the unit and assign it to the many-to-one. For the one-to-many, you can get a new object related to the parent one with new, and when you have your object address, you can populate all the data you need, and here we are populating 2 addresses and saving at the end. You can also import binary data. For example, if your customer have data in the provider URL, so you can open that and load into Tryton. And with many-to-many, you can also create the parent. You can create a category and also append to the categories whatever you want. You can also make translations. How it's a translation made? It's by getting the language object and setting context with the language you want to translate, you want to use, maybe, getting that product and putting a name. And when you want to make the translation for this product, you need to set again the context, now with your language you want to write, and you can set the other name. It's the same object with 2 different translations. You can also use wizards, and you can also make the same actions with workflows as your user will do. How you can extract the data? There are countless methods of doing that. They have connection. Python have a lot of connectors through any kind of database you can imagine. You can extract your information customer data from the systems they have. Maybe they have Shopify, they maybe Magento, whatever they have. You can get that into a Python script and populate all that to your Tryton ERP. You can also make queries. I don't know why. Well, you can make your own query. Yeah, it's also another possible option. I think it's next. No, I don't know. Well, let's see. We will talk later about default, why it's there. Okay. There's also possible to get the Excel files they have, or the same CSV files that we talked before, but you can prepare the data before making the migration. That's an important part. And that's the preparation part that is the most relevant, I think, of doing a migration. Because if you have consistent data, you don't need to do that. But normally you came from maybe inconsistent data. So for example, you have the column in your Excel file named country, or in your past database that it's country, and you find in that column all of these terms, yeah. But how Tryton calls this term? Well, so King of Belgium, it's Belgium. Whatever, I don't know how to pronounce this, but there are different types of saying that, the same thing. But in Tryton, there's only one thing to say. So how I can match that? So you will have to do a mapping. What's a mapping? A dictionary assigning a key to whatever thing. In this case, we are using the code of the country for whatever cases we encounter in that database. And we can also correct data that's wrong as Berlin is in the country column. Maybe it's not consistent, so we can correct that. So learn to not trust the origin column names. It's also a learn you can do today. Yeah, you can, we have the same problem in Spain with Barcelona. You can name it whatever you want, but in Tryton, it's Barcelona with a closing bracket. Barcelona as the name, it's the same, the city and the subdivision. So that's the encoding of the package we use to load that subdivision, so we cannot change that. What you can do, for example, okay, by definition, you have in Spain all the subdivisions named with the, all the subdivisions have their own 2 first-digit number postal codes that matches a subdivision. So you can forget about customer column of subdivisions and use only the postal code you have on the address field. And you can do a matching. So you can get the first 2 of the postal code, assigning those 52 to each of the province code, and you have all the data there. So you don't have to match against the problem with the brackets. So maybe there's an option for you, or you can experiment with anything of these. Another option, at least for Spain, I don't know if it's in other countries, when you make a search in the postal code model, you can find, you can search by postal code field, and also, well, you can filter that only showing subdivision types province, and you can find by a postal code your subdivisions and also your country. So 2 things loaded in one time. With Proteus, you can also use hierarchy. So you can assign the parent, and that's all. And you can make it this whatever times you need it. Or complicate yourself with recursivity functions, like this one here, that gets all the, in this case, from all the categories from a WooCommerce API. We are downloading all the categories. You can go see here that we can also storing the commerce ID in Tryton's database, and you can import children to go again to repeat the same function. So one advice I would like to do is, please do not save every time. Do not do this. Please do this. So when you have, when you are creating a lot of objects, please append it to a list and save the list later, because it will improve the overall performance of the script. Overall, or at least this part. Oh, yeah. So please, yeah, that's one thing. There's another. Don't search in a loop. Don't do a find in every loop of the old invoices. You can make or try to find some mapping for that. So you can maybe do one search from the party identifiers and create a dictionary with indent code, identifier code to the party. So later on you can assign to that party the corresponding object. Yeah, the problem you can have is, okay, I'm loading the data, but let me take 1 second. Thank you. You want also to verify the data before creating in Tryton, because if you load wrong data, Tryton will warn you, and will not make you able to pass that, at least easy. So please, if you know there are restrictions or you encounter restrictions through the journey, try to validate it. And if you cannot validate, if this event is not valid, you can set the type to known and at least get that information with another type, but load it also. So you don't lose information and you make a separation from what is valid and what it's not. So if you encounter bank accounts with not type, it means that in the migration there was not valid. So to speed up the defaults, when you instantiate an object, the defaults are called every time. So if we are back, for example, let me see. No, I'm in the wrong direction. Yes. Yeah. When we are creating here this object, Tryton is getting its default fields. Every time we do this loop. So what we can do to not look what are the default values for that, we can, yes, no, too much. Okay, you can get all the default of that models here. You can load all the defaults of a model, say to Tryton, please default false, so when you instantiate that object, he doesn't make the query, but you set it here with the set default to do not make that query, but you also have the default values. So you don't lose that, but you improve the performance of your migration script. Oh. Yeah, you can, as I said before, load articles, load whatever you want. The most recommendation is do it in steps. And also, if you can also make that simple find to see if one of your data from the customer's table have been loaded into Tryton. So you can return and skip this process if there's already a migrated part of the data. So you can still work in another parts of the migration script. And the production, normally, more frequently, error that can show up to you when you have the migration mostly prepared, it's that it's shown when you are migrating in the production server. So what is happening here? Tryton is warning us or making an exception for us, raising an exception for us, because we load some invalid phone number, okay? You encounter this error because in your development machine, you are working with telephone numbers, but when you install the requirements files from your custom module, normally there's not this library installed by default. So as it's not, you will not encounter this error while you're working in the migration in your local system. So please, a solution is to first, when I'm doing a migration, install phone numbers so I can see which are the errors before I encounter in production. So what I told you before is, okay, so verify the data. So here is the script when you have the phone numbers library to validate the data. So if we are creating type, this is the rows of the Excel file, this is the type in Tryton, this is if it's used for invoice or not, this contact mechanism. So whenever you have, for example, a mechanism that it's not phone, mobile, or fax, you skip this validation. In Spain, we use 34 code in the phone, so we check that also. And if it not raises an exception, the mechanism remains the same. But if we convert the mechanism type to other, so the information is loaded into Tryton, but will not raise any problem in the final migration. No, I'm going back, yeah. There's also another script you can use for example, find duplicated parties in your database. I told you before that normally a company have suppliers and customers. Normally they mix them, so that's why in Tryton we call it parties. And mostly when you do that, do this type of migrations, you encounter duplicated parties. So a script that, for example, makes that solve is this one, but feel free to do whatever you want. You can also do the import script from the country module. You can call it in Proteus, and you can jump over restrictions. For example, we normally, when you import maybe some historical data, you need to define the sales number, but you can, because number is only a read-only field. So you make a trick and say, okay, now in this precise moment, the read-only is false. I can load the number, save it, and all the code remains the same. I don't have to change the definition of that field. I only do in the Proteus script, but use these type of things at your own risk. And yeah, you can test if you have done or you have if you have done anything a bit out of the normal way, so you can validate your data. There's that Tryton admin console script or whatever you want to call it. So the steps to verify before launching are try to migrate the old data into the system, will allow the users to check that information. During the training, we love to do this training over the old data and correct any issues in the migration process. Once the users are confident with that, we pass to executing the same migration we did and in the production server. So now you can go live with your migration and your customer can start doing their own thing with the new Tryton ERP system. So please don't do it on Friday, but do it also. And all the scripts will be available in that snippet of GitLab. And that's all I have to say now. And if you have any questions about any of the scripts or whatever you want to ask, feel free. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions? I think everybody is a bit tired.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, so thank you again.